We begin with the raw biology of the human animal, flesh exposed to the elements, shivering, entirely subject to the environment. In this natural state, we are naked. It is a condition of deprivation, of literal defenselessness and physical exposure. Early artifacts like prehistoric fertility figures reflect this unidealized reality, prioritizing survival and reproduction over geometry. They are heavy, grounded, and dictated by biological function. The invention of the nude abandons this biological literalism. Art historian Kenneth Clark defined the nude not as a naked body, but as a body reformed. It is balanced, prosperous, and deliberately stripped of its awkward mortal vulnerabilities. By the time of classical antiquity, the physical form is fully formalized. The marble conveys a structural calm and immense confidence. The nude, therefore, is entirely distinct from biology. It is a philosophical apparatus designed to transcend physical limits. In his extensive study of ideal art, Kenneth Clark provided a framework for how Western culture translates the human form. He distinguished the true nude from a mere stereotype. A stereotype is simply a distillation of average visual experience, a generic copy of what we see every day. An archetype, however, is an imaginary, perfected model. It is the active standard against which all human variety and physical experience are subsequently measured. The primary vector for masculine idealization is the Apollonian archetype, characterized by strict geometric clarity. The primary vector for feminine idealization is the Venusian archetype, which relies on the sublimated grace of continuous curves. These dual archetypes operate as a specific visual language, translating the raw, chaotic reality of the human body into universal aesthetic legibility. In Greek mythology, Apollo is the god of light, reason, and justice. His domain is order, positioned in direct opposition to darkness and chaos. This mythological identity strictly dictates how he is represented in physical space. We see the quintessential embodiment of this authoritative, confident male form in classical marble. The posture is alert, yet entirely at rest. This effect is achieved through a specific aesthetic mechanism, mathematical harmony, and a belief in precise, measurable proportions. Looking at this proportional overlay, the form conforms to strict geometric axes. Every muscle group is delineated to a shape the eye can grasp. Pythagorean philosophers linked these ratios to divine order. Beauty became synonymous with mathematics. The philosopher George Wilhelm Friedrich Hegel identified the specific intersection of form and math as absolute beauty. Hegel noted that this flawless physical shape perfectly embodies spiritual freedom. It is completely unmarred by any marks of physical frailty or dependence. This rigid geometry also projects a distinct psychological state, a concept explored later by Martin Heidegger. Heidegger analyzed the Apollonian form as the ultimate expression of being for oneself, a cool, noble, aloof beauty indicating supreme self-affirmation and internal integration. The marble does not invite sympathy. It operates as a deliberate, conquering triumph of reason over intractable nature. Through rigorous geometric clarity, the Apollonian ideal elevates the vulnerable, decaying human body to the indestructible status of a god. The female archetype presents a very different challenge for formalist mathematical art history. Clark asserted that the female nude, no matter how highly abstracted, cannot be entirely divorced from fundamental erotic feeling and the biological desire for union. This raw physical desire is a chaotic force, standing in direct contrast to the cold mathematical rationality of Apollo. To resolve this, the Venusian archetype relies on sublimation. It takes unreasonable, unpredictable passion and refines it into a celestial, socially sanctioned image. The aesthetic tools to achieve this are bilateral symmetry, require precise measurement, and strict formal subordination, where details yield to the whole. This ideal historically manifests in two distinct forms, beginning with the crystalline Venus. We see the crystalline ideal emerge in the Renaissance. The figure is almost weightless, defined by sharp, intellectual clarity. Tracing the structural lines, the curves map a logical transition of the female form. The modeling is traversed by a continuous melodic line. These continuous transitions subordinate raw sensuality, pulling the eye along a path of philosophical grace. The opposing historical path is the vegetable Venus, which dominated the Baroque era. In these canvases, the composition is dense with intertwined figures, emphasizing a highly saturated, fleshy presence. The formal qualities here prioritize organic abundance, fluid vitality, and a cornucopia of rich physical weight. The luminescent, warm oil textures of these paintings stand as the ultimate contrast to the stark, cold marble of antiquity. Yet, despite extreme differences in texture and tone, both the crystalline and vegetable forms require the exact same smooth, logical transitions to maintain status as an ideal. The Venusian archetype succeeds because it continuously manages chaotic biological desire, translating it into an enduring formal harmony. Bringing the male and female archetypes together reveals a shared foundation beneath their distinct visual languages. As the split-screen structural grid shows, the 3D marble Apollo and the Baroque oil Venus align to the exact same proportional axes. The underlying architecture is identical. This hidden structural logic resolves the apparent tension between strict rational geometry and sublimated fluid sensuality. Clarke described these finished archetypes as receptacles. Once the form is perfected, successive generations pour their own evolving human experiences and cultural anxieties into them. Despite speaking in different material languages, Apollo and Venus serve the identical phenomenological function. They elevate the human form beyond its mortal limits. The invention of the nude answers a psychological requirement, the desire to see a sense of universal, divine order mapped onto our own physical bodies. The philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche viewed this kind of aesthetic idealization as a necessary protective mechanism for the human psyche. He called it a transfiguring illusion, a veil of ideal beauty we must drape over reality to keep the animated world alive in the face of inevitable suffering and dissonance. The classical nude endures as our most potent aesthetic framework because it provides exactly that illusion. It takes the profound vulnerability of human existence and makes it, ultimately, navigable.